The Book of Recollections, Episode 34, The Right Path, by Dicesylvania. Is it just me, or is the air getting a bit heavy around here? I'm going to be honest with you, dear audience. I have no clue how the gang got out of the dire situation they were previously in, but boy, am I glad they did. Otherwise, I would have been out of a job. Let's see how they're coping, one by one. It had been a month since the latest tragedy that befell Greenspring, when evil sprouted in the Augury district in the form of skeletons and corpses just rising from the Sabbath water, attacking everything in their path with their lethal bite. Our heroes managed to perform their ritual to stop the plague from spreading, but they were faced with the sorrow of countless casualties, so they each coped in their own manner. Castiel, angry after discovering his old man's experiments that he did not share with him, decided to spend some time in the Augury district to gather up corpses, constantly being interrupted and questioned by the local guards. Rem Mortis, the chancellor of the district, who was sending scouting parties to assess the situation in his area, took Castiel aside to urge him to present his intentions to the council so that he could be granted permission to go about his business uninterrupted. Upon consideration, Castiel reluctantly agreed, so they traveled to the royal district, where they entered the council building with the 7 chancellors already seated around the table. Bram Ironfist from the hillside district, a rugged, broad-shouldered man with a bristling, well-groomed beard and piercing eyes. Marcus Venter of the Cloud District, his youthful features glowing with warmth and confidence. Lila Starshine from the Purple District, draped in flowing purple silks, adorned with intricate floral embroidery, exuding a mesmerizing presence. Gaia Groundhill from the Lung District, her kind, wise eyes seeming to hold the weight of the natural world. Rem Mortis of the Augury district, whose gaunt face and sunken eyes reflect the gravity of his role. Lucian Welfer from the Sunrise district, radiating an aura of wisdom and authority. And lastly, Leo Auxilium of the Midnight district, accurately portrayed by Grace. Castiel spruced himself up and came prepared with a hefty book, determined to give them the honest truth without any sugarcoating. He talked about the tragedy and what his plans to save the city were. He asked the governing bodies for support, free reign through the districts, and a few knickknacks for the prison he possessed to detain the corpses. But Iron Fist expressed his concerns about the whole plan and what risks might appear, with Castiel offering his assurance that, should the experiment go awry, it could be easily taken out of town. Leo, masterfully portrayed by Grace, suggested the king would be suited to help make a decision, but Bram and Castiel refused to spend time searching for Pax. Bram Ironfist then turned to the other chancellors to hear their say, not quite having made up his own mind. After a resounding yet slightly reluctant yes from the rest of the chancellors, who appreciated the ingenuity but understood the risks at hand, Bram had no choice but to grant Castiel the permission to conduct his experiment. Castiel proceeded to make his demands to Rem, requesting a few spells that would help with his endeavor, and, wishing to create some sort of guardians to protect the city of Greenspring, he requested that a part of the Tree of Knowledge be given to him, feeling entitled to it as he and Pax were the ones who struggled to bring it into the city. But Rem urged him once again to discuss it openly in front of the council, offering to put in a good word, but making no promises. Sounds like Castiel has a lot on his hands. Let's just hope he wasn't given too much power. In the meantime, let's see what his most recent offspring is up to. Shadowfall was still trying to wrap his head around the world in front of him, taken aback by the tragedy, and he couldn't help but relate with all the children affected in the wake of the undead. He saw a group of malnourished children all gathered up around a young lady who was cheerfully doing her best to comfort all of them. As he approached them, trying not to frighten them, the young lady, he later found out was called Maria, seemed more curious than scared towards his appearance. Not feeling in any way threatened, he decided to spend some time with them and maybe learn more about the ways of society. When hearing about their housing situation, Shadowfall, without getting the chance to consult with Castiel or Leo, or without being aware that he must do so, suggested to Maria to take all the children and bring them to Leo's mansion, for there was enough space for everyone there. Excited by the idea, they instantly marched all the way to the Midnight District to the Chancellor's Manor, where they were taken aback by the gruesome state the house was in, currently covered in blood and guts. Castiel was taken aback by the horde of younglings running around, while Maria was busy making the bedding and the meal plans for all of them, wishing to financially contribute to their well-being. But not before berating Castiel for the state of the interior, which forced him to animate a few of his spare parts that were lying around, commanding them to start cleaning. Shadowfall instructed the children not to meddle with any of those spares, calling them the no-touchies, then left towards the Sabbath River. On the banks, Shadowfall glanced at his reflection in the water, only to see the face of another looking back at him. A woman in a flowing indigo dress with a mask with small horns around the edges. She revealed herself as Saturni, and, without moving her lips, started telling Shadowfall about the kinship she felt with him, urging him to open his heart. Upon hearing those words, he reached into his chest and pulled out the glowing orb, awaiting more instructions. Saturni came closer to him, clasping the hands that were holding the orb, making it glow even brighter than before. Saturni offered to teach him about the ways of the astrals, and, in return, Shadowfall would only need to step up when the situation called for it. Then, after putting the orb back inside him, the astral disappeared back into the river, leaving Shadowfall with a sense of new, gaining feelings, skills, and understandings. Every day at the Chancellor's Manor, Shadowfall would be greeted by a scholar or a scribe, filled to the brim with stacks of books and scrolls, ready to teach him about the astrals, to Castiel's discontent, who called them demagogues with false writings, and fought to convince his offspring that those were not the right teachings. But Shadowfall, with his newly gained perspective, welcomed both visions, eager to expand his knowledge as much as he could.
I get all teary when they grow up. Way to go, buddy! Now, how about our favorite shapeshifter? Let's see what's up with Grace.
Grace was devastated by the state of Greenspring, being immensely hit by the image of all the now orphaned children with no place to go. But she didn't have time to dwell upon the sadness, so she decided to act. Turning into the form of Brave Dave that seemed to empower everybody in his path, he led the children straight towards the Nomad Nook to ask Monkey and the gang for their help. When nobody answered the door, Brave Dave made use of their long-lasting acquaintanceship to locate the hidden spare key, stashed away in a contraption created by Archie. After leaving the children with needed instructions to navigate their new shifting house that had the ability to change locations, Grace swiftly transformed into the well-known image of Leo, heading straight for the council. There, he urged the chancellors once again to gather a search party to retrieve their missing king, to which they opposed, arguing that the situation in Greenspring couldn't spare any hands. Leo then pleaded with them to suggest aiding measures for all the poor and the refugees that were affected by this tragedy, while also drawing attention to the delayed rites for the people that were slain by the dead. The chancellors discussed the unfortunate possibility to postpone the rites for months in order to focus on the refugees, taking into account the possibility of dividing the refugees amongst the districts equally, but making a snide remark towards the Midnight District that would be excluded from the equation due to the poor state of the favela-like area, while jokingly asking Leo if he would offer to help out as well. It was for the first time that Leo's seemingly composed nature flickered, Grace getting all worked up because of the blatant disrespect and ignorance that the other chancellors displayed, calling them out on their hypocrisy and the discrimination towards the Midnight District that was overflooded but still did its best to care for the people it housed with the bare minimum resources that it had. The chancellors then decided to adjourn the meeting to avoid any further tension, to Grace's frustration. But filling in Leo's shoes while he was away meant she also had to take part in royal events, parties, and balls, which gave Grace the perfect opportunity to take notice of anything suspicious. She heard that Isaac Koren, who always opposed Pax, was gaining more and more favor in his absence, while Doxis Dolor, a senior scholar of the Hebdomadic Order, who always treated Pax fairly and aided him in the past, was being pushed aside. But Pax's leadership and claim to the throne was questioned even further when Lucian of the Sunrise District talked about how the Hebdomads succeeded in unlocking even more powerful spells, claiming that it didn't matter if the king was not present in Greenspring, as long as they had the Hebdomads to protect them. And Pax's allies grew thin, as Grace would soon discover. Knight Oswald, a loyal soldier of the king, was called a lapdog, blaming his lack of commanding troops on his inability to change his allegiance. Realizing she did not have any other options or people to rely on, she turned to Castiel for help to find Pax. Naturally, Castiel's reluctance was both visible and vocal, but Grace pleaded with him to help her because he truly was the only person she could trust. And, after much bickering, Castiel agreed, but not before he had a chance to discuss with the chancellors about receiving a piece from the branch he and Pax brought from the Tree of Knowledge. Little did Castiel know that Shadowfall, having heard him talk about the branch, understood that it had a certain importance and decided to take matters into his own hands and retrieve a piece of it. So, while turning himself and Shifty invisible, he successfully snuck into the Green Chapel with nothing but his courage and a piece of paper with what seemed like a drawing of the branch and some notes made by Castiel, suggesting either to break a piece of the branch or to take it as a whole. While venturing undetected into the castle, Shadowfall reached an area where significantly more guards were stationed, which meant that they were protecting something important: the branch. A wrong step on the already cracked marble was enough to draw the attention of the guards, so he decided to send Shifty to retrieve it, while he would try to further draw their attention. But Shifty's invisibility dissipated pretty soon after leaving Shadowfall's cloak, which alerted two of the guards that still remained near the branch. As they were about to attack, Shadowfall summoned Shifty back to rethink his strategy, but the already suspicious guards had sent for reinforcements. However, Shadowfall tried to further deter the guards by creating an indoor sleet storm, while sending Shifty on another try to retrieve the branch. Shifty then changed his shape into a kitchen knife and proceeded to cut out a piece of the branch while transforming into a huge mouth to catch it and carry it back to shelter. Castiel, seeing all the guards rushing into the Green Chapel, quickly realized that somebody might have beaten him to the branch. He decided to send a few familiars inside, connecting with one of them to grant him vision, but rendering him immovable, caught just in time by Grace, now in the shape of Brave Dave. Castiel, through the eyes of the familiar, saw Shadowfall, now visible, surrounded by guards. Once they hid him, Shadowfall created a protective barrier out of what seemed to be Sabbath water. Castiel managed to steal Shifty and the piece of the branch, while turning Shadowfall invisible, urging him to follow him out. After regaining consciousness, Grace advised Castiel and his band of brutes to leave the town immediately, while she turned into Leo to attend the urgent council meeting that the Magi requested after the Green Chapel incident. But Grace soon realized that the council might be on to what they were up to, especially Gaia, who directly confronted her in the shape of Leo. After the meeting was over, once the Chancellor started leaving the hall, Grace decided to bring Brave Dave into the picture once more, while trying to use chloroform to knock out the Chancellors and the guards. But she was outnumbered, and about to be overrun, so she decided to plummet out the nearest window and change into an orphan boy begging in the streets. When the coast was clear, Grace followed Marcus home, where she disguised herself into Trish, his housekeep, while shoving the real Trish into the cabinet. She tried to immobilize Marcus, who immediately caught on that his housemaid had been replaced. He then gave Grace two options. Either he would blow both of them up, or they would exchange information and be on their way. While she invented a fib about working for Lady Ferris, Marcus talked about how Greenspring was on its way to gain a new form of leadership that needed no king, only the power of the Hebdomads. With a possible threat to overthrow the king, Grace left Marcus's house to reconvene with Castiel and the others outside the city.
Well, well, when the king's away, the council organizes a coup. Or however the saying goes. I think I'm done with politics for one day. Let's go somewhere we can chill for a bit.
While entwined in the cosmos, with stars humming in harmony, Adam suddenly felt a ripple disturbing the serene moment, a faint tremor that grew into a shattering truth. A star had exploded, and in its wake dimmed the light of countless others, rapidly spreading grief into the cosmic web. Burdened by the profound grief felt in the atmosphere, Adam performed a ritual to determine whether the astrals had been affected, but he would soon discover that the loss of one star did not affect the tapestry designed by the Seven. But Adam was not the only one to contemplate in the starlight. Below the clear night sky, Keith was pondering her own existence in the pale light of the low-hanging moon, gazing at the sparkle of the lake, shadowed only by the dense forest surrounding it. Then she felt a presence calling to her timidly from the forest. Lunai revealed herself, and, almost as if sensing Kate's internal turmoil and doubt, offered reassurance that she always kept an eye on her and bestowed her blessing on the half-elf to help her connect to the primordial and prepare her for the road ahead. While Kate returned to the cabin with her newfound strength, Jen was in the middle of the woods, making a flat surface to put the tapestry that kept her father trapped. Once she pulled him out, the ferocious man instantly tried to attack his daughter, but Jen immobilized the shriveled, bony man, binding him to the tapestry once more. However, Jen realized she was not alone. She spotted a young girl with auburn hair and emerald green eyes, filled with mischief, nonchalantly claiming that she was sent by Seraphine to spy on the Dhampir, and that she would arrive in Winterheim the following day to seal their previous deal. After the girl left with clear instructions from Jen on their meeting location, the Dhampir broke down, soon to be comforted by Leo, who grew worried and tracked her into the woods. They returned to the worthy cabin to find Keith resting by the fire, and started discussing what their options were and the upcoming rendezvous. Adam joined the group to tell them about the incoming peril that will affect Greenspring, and urged the group to reconvene with Pax and the others. But Jen wished to keep her end of the deal with Seraphine, so the group agreed to greet the following day's discussion with an open mind. Seraphine did not arrive alone, being accompanied by the young girl from the night before, Astrid, her twin brother Valen, an old man called Lucian, and a much younger fellow by the name of Amon, who happened to be Lucian's father. The talks led to a new agreement between Seraphine and Jen, granting her father salvation and aid in time of need, in exchange for her grandmother's heart. Adam somehow tied Jen's grandmother to the imminent peril he warned the group about, urging them to find Pax and the others. But Jen was bound by promise to see the deal through. However, before the now enlarged group was on its way to face the threat, Inge appeared out of the woods, calling for Keith, to offer her a piece of the family heirloom in the form of 2 bracers, with what seemed like feathers connected to one another. Saying their goodbyes, the team geared up with heavy clothes to protect them from the biting frost, and took to the road. All of a sudden, the energetic twin girl and the old man started cringing and groaning, as if stuck into place by an invisible force. A shrill voice pierced the cold air. Jen's grandfather, Mr. Fang, making his unexpected appearance. This was the recap for episode 34 of VIM as told by the Book of Recollections. I was Ruxandra Vorotneac, your VIM recap narrator. If you'd like to join us as VIM, the Tale of Immortality premieres, tune in on Sunday at 5 p.m. UTC on youtube.com/@Dicesylvania. New recaps drop every Friday evening. And remember, every subscribe keeps the magic alive. Thanks for sticking with us. Good day, good night, and don't let the vampires bite.